Hi, everybody, and welcome to Friday Night Flock Talk. I'm Robin Sullivan of the Leather Elves. I'm always smiling when I come on because Nick has these great pictures that we watch before we go live. So thank you, Nick. So the usual reminders. If you haven't listened before to Friday Night Flock Talk, we do this every week, the same reminders, but and you would think I would know them, but I still have to read them. So you can like the Leather Elves on Facebook, and that way you get notifications when we go live. You can check the Leather Elves Facebook page to catch surprise sales, pop-up events, things like that. You can also follow us on Instagram, and you can subscribe to our YouTube channel. Just a reminder, this week we extended our sale. We were having a spring sale. We extended that until Sunday at midnight. So that's 40% off. And the code for that is SPRING, SPRING. And those lorries looked a little springy to me. Yep, if you need some Leather Elves toys, hop on there. We're also suggesting that with the 40% that you save, maybe you might want to purchase a Rockstar Rescue box for the Rockstar Rescue Tour. So tonight's guest is one of the facilities that we will be visiting on the Rockstar Tour. So I'd like to introduce you guys to James from Straw Hat Parrots. Hey there.
Howdy.
How how are you?
Good. How are you?
I'm good. So James, I want you to introduce yourself because I don't know that I can do that justice. So, um, can you let people know a little bit about who you are?
Well, like I said, I'm James Weeks. I'm more of an aviculturist and a rescuer, in my opinion. My dream is always free flight for every bird, like this guy right here. I am also a prior service Marine. I spent 5 years in the military, and then I spent about another 5 years serving the government as a civil servant. I'm an aviation mechanic as a background, so flight's kind of just a part of my life. And I'm also a paramotor pilot. So one day these guys will join me in the sky.
I we need to talk about that because that fascinates me, but we'll save that for the end. So we'll keep everybody on the edge of their seats with that bit of information. Um, so what is first of all, I can't wait to come down and meet your birds. We're gonna be down there in July. Carrie Ellen and I from Bird Gardens in Naples, and so it's just I'm getting a little taste of it now, and so this is kind of cool, but it'll be fun. So what you've got the background in aviation, and then what's your earliest avian memory?
As a kid, there were stores in the town I grew up in, Augusta, Georgia. Pet stores that had, macaws in it. I remember going to visit them, and it was like, oh, these are like the coolest animals on the planet. And that was way out of my price range as a kid. Then, as a young adult, I actually got involved with another rescue. My mom was living with one of the board of directors at the moment, um, and I was just kind of volunteering there at the time. This was probably about 20 years ago, and I really enjoyed that. And then inevitably, I did join the military, like I was mentioning earlier, and I was gone for about 10 years. And in 2018, I came back here and just immediately got right back into birds. And I knew I wanted to do this as pretty much a career. And I just dove right into it, got a 501c developed. Last year, I got a building up. It's been functional for about 8 months now. Um, and everything's just going really good. So,
So, I mean, I think, most people, when you ask them about what's their first memory, things like that, it's I went to the pet store or, so and so in my family had a budgie. And we somehow kind of just grow and it becomes an obsession. We have other parts of our lives, but this becomes, the main focus. And I think it's great that that you had those experiences and still carried them through. I think that's really neat. So do you have a favorite species? We won't tell anybody if it's not,
that's hard. I mean, I could probably limit it down to like maybe a top five. Hyacinth macaws, I have a pair of those that I absolutely love. Golden conures. I have 2 pairs of those that I absolutely love. Hans macaws, another pair. Or I have 2 pairs of those. To be honest, that I have. 2 of them are free flyers. Um, the greater vases, not species not many people are familiar with.
They're
I have
great.
one. I've had 8 of them. They are just a fabulous, quirky little species.
Mhm.
They're probably my favorite of African species. Amazon wise, I'd probably go with like orange wings. I think they're amazing. I have one as well.
Yeah, the Vasas, the greater Vasas are fascinating. I think that they are very underrated in the companion parrot world. Um, but they're such that
You
you
can
can
go visit.
see the wheels turning. When when you think about Vasas and people are just don't understand a lot of their behavior. But I think they're really neat. And I've talked a lot. I don't know if you're familiar with the Eclectus Arc out in
Oh
Oklahoma,
yes, I'm gonna
and
collect it from the rescue right now. Another
but
different and quirky parrot.
I was talking to Lorella Desborough and Lisa Woodworth out at the Eclectus Arc. They've got some Vasas, and I got to meet them when I went out there, and they're really neat. And who's this?
So right here we have Popo. This is my greater Vasa, and
Love
then
it.
like I mentioned, the orange wing. That's Ava.
Oh,
Both
they're
both
so.
female
I
birds,
mean,
both very friendly.
you did a post today, didn't you, about birds? Everything's black and white with the Vasa.
Say again.
Did you do a post with everything's black
Let
and
me
white
walk
with
away
the
from these
Vasa?
loud guys. All right, sorry about that. Go ahead.
No, I was just saying, the Vasas, you did a post, was it today about everything's black and white or it's not always black and white?
Oh yes, I was talking about how parrots usually you would think a parrot and think, these guys colorful,
Right.
but then there are parrots, in the world like those too. They're just black and white.
Yep.
You guys, you want some?
Um, so you said that you said you consider yourself an aviculturist, and I agree with you 100%. Um, oh, they're so beautiful. You've got people gasping now, I'm sure, who are watching, who haven't seen your birds free fly.
Good job.
Nice work. Um, we might have lost him. Nope, you're back. Um, so you mentioned being an aviculturist more than a rescue. Um, why do you make I agree with you, but why do you make that distinction?
Well, I'm not one of those rescues that say, adopt, don't shop. I personally do with that philosophy. If we, strictly abided by that, we would lose parrots in a generation. So
Mhm,
just personally, I like keeping parrots. It's not just a sympathy job that I do as a rescue. It's something that I thoroughly enjoy. So I have select species that I personally do breed, and I don't mind doing it at all. Am I saying you should just go out and breed birds anything you want? No, but I think every rescue maybe should focus on a particular species that is hurting aviculture, and those numbers grow.
mhm. And I think it's so important that people realize that there are species that are not well represented in aviculture. Just so you know, Ashley says she knows that you meant to say mealy when you were talking about Amazons. So, um, no bias there at all. But, so I think, the term rescue gets thrown around a lot, and one of the things oh, you're frozen. He might be gone. Alright, so I'm gonna go there until he comes back,
I
and
think he
hopefully
might
he'll come
still
back
have
soon.
sound.
Oh, okay. So, um, so the term rescue, I had someone tell me one time that, birds aren't when you say, "I have a rescue," oh, you're back, yay.
I'm back.
But
Sorry.
that's okay. I was just saying that I think, a lot of times people will say, "Oh, my bird's a rescue." And it's not a rescue. The person I was talking to said, it was actually Carrie Ellen. And she said to me, it's not a rescue, it's a survivor, and that the rescue is the act of what you do. Maybe you take a bird from a bad situation, or impending doom, but that's the important thing to think about when you're thinking about a rescue. And I think what you're doing with your guys here. So let's flip for a second. And I mean, your mission statement, it talks about so much. There's a lot in your mission statement, James. um, how did you come up with that?
Try to just be open and helping. Every bird that comes here, I don't I offer any judgment. It's just I offer help. So sir, uh, step up. Go on. Sorry, kind of distracting with
It's
the bird on
okay.
my shoulder. uh, he's coming back. Um,
So
so just I'm here for support. I don't really care about the people too much. I'm here for the birds.
and I think that's the bottom line. It's, I love your mission's great. It's, to rescue, rehabilitate, retrain, and rehome any and all displaced, unwanted, mistreated, neglected. Hold on, there's more. Um, Abused companion parrots, as well as enhancing the lives of companion parrots through educating the public. And I think those have to go hand in hand, James. Has that been your experience? That,
Yes,
people.
education is key. Support is key too. Once you adopt a bird from me, my support comes with that bird for as long as you keep that bird. So any question is not a dumb question. It's a question of concern. So when you reach out to me, I'm not going to judge you for a silly question. I'm just going to answer it to the best of my ability and hopefully help
Mhm.
you with your bird.
Well, and I think too, the education piece, a lot of people go into companion parrot ownership with a lot of preconceived notions of how it's going to be and what's going to happen. And I really think that um, we need to further that education. It's not, here you go, take this bird, go home, and now it's yours and you're on your own. Um, and I
Absolutely.
think, the experience someone like you brings, or a lot of the rescues, a lot of the facilities, that education piece is critical, after the adoption.
Yes, I agree 100%.
So where does Straw Hat Parrots, where does the name come from?
Okay, so that's kind of the child in me. I watch anime, Japanese cartoons. One of the shows I really enjoy is called One Piece. It follows a crew of pirates. Obviously, everyone relates pirates. So the crew is called the Straw Hat Pirates. And I just kind of ran with the theme of Straw Hat Pirates. The Luffy, the first mate is Zoro, and it goes on and on. I have Nami, they're also crewmates, and I just kind of ran with the theme. I'm really big on TikTok too, so I would say probably half of my followers there are just anime fans, and they just discovered me because of Straw Hat Parrots.
That's super cool. I like that. It's always fun to see where names come from. Our company, I don't know, the leather elves, people go, well, where does that come from? What is it? Because you use so much leather, and it's not. It's from the story of the elves and the shoemaker. That they could make shoes overnight. And when my parents started the business, they could make toys overnight. So we can't do that anymore. I wish we could, but we can't. So when you challenges, James. I mean, what we're seeing right now is the perfect parrot world, right? These guys are flying, they're hanging out, they're interacting with you, but they can do their own thing. What are the challenges that come with managing a rescue?
Time. My biggest problem is time. I wish I could just have like a million hours in the day and spend as much time as possible with these guys. But unfortunately, that is not a realistic possibility.
The okay, how about housing? You said you have a building that's been functional for about 8 months.
Yeah, right there.
When do you okay. So when do you say enough is enough? I'm at the point because rescues, as you well, I'm sure you know, rescues get that bad rap that they're hoarders, they're just doing this to get more birds. How do you balance something
So
like
that is something I really focus on, and I do not want to be a hoarder. So I focus on adopt, adopt, adopt. I don't donate against first time bird owners. That's where the support comes in my opinion. So I really push adoptions. And I still try to find the best qualified homes. I have over 200 nations on file, and I would say maybe 5% of those have adopted from me. So I'm
that?
in that regard. If I see a that or an answer that I don't like, that's immediate no. I just move on to that application. I only best applications out, and then I'm this again really selective from there.
Mhm.
But I keep my
So
adoptions moving quickly.
so what do you look for in adopters? Is it what's the criteria? Is there a criteria? What are you looking for?
Um, what are your intents with this bird? If you're just like, oh, I want a bird that talks, bah, sorry, that's the wrong answer. It's probably not what I'm looking for. If you're just looking for a bird to give the best potential possibility, hey, birds, I want to live with a bird. I don't really care if they scream. If you can handle all of that, okay, we're on the right track. I'm really looking for diet. I'm not looking for people to say, I feed my bird food. Okay, you haven't done any research. Like, tell me what you're actually feeding your bird and tell me your enrichment. Like, I'm looking for good, stimulating answers. I'm not just looking for basic black and white, yes or no answers. I want, how do you intend on training your bird? Not yes. I get that so many times. I'm just like, next. I'm looking for, I plan on using recall training or target training or clicker training, or I follow bird tricks on YouTube and I take their advice, something along those lines. That's a satisfactory answer.
Mhm. So, as far as diet's concerned, um, what do you recommend for folks for diet?
So, I mean, I like pellets. I'm a pellet pusher. I think they're far better than seeds, but that's not an exclusive diet in any means. High veggie diet, low in fruit. A lot of people get the assumption that a lot of fruit in their diet as well. Uh, Fruit cultivated by us, it's high in sugar. These birds don't need a lot of sugar. They're kind of, most of them are just sitting in the cage 90% of the time, so they're not getting that energy out of them. So I am very low in fruit kind of person, high in vegetables, your greens, your oranges, your reds, you know, keep it mixed up, keep a good variety. I'm not 100% against seed either. I feed probably 10 to 15% of my diet is seed. The rest is just pellets, veggies, some nut. I try to keep the fat relatively low, just because so many of these birds don't get size that they really should.
Mhm. So,
But
now
pellets,
with your
I
flyers I'm sorry, with your flyers, do you feed them a higher, uh, like a different diet than the ones you aren't flying?
they get a lot more nuts while we're out flying. I keep a pocket full of nuts and just sporadically feed them here and there. So you know, throughout the day they get fed, and that's only during flight days, which is at least 300 days out of the year.
Which brings up a good point. I know a lot of the people who listen on a regular basis to Friday Night Flock Talk are not necessarily flyers. Um, it's a lifestyle. Am I correct, James?
100% a lifestyle. It's either you free fly 3 to 5 times a week, or your bird's probably just better off not free flying.
Yeah. Oh, that's stunning. Um, so, I how did you get to the point where you went, "Okay, I'm gonna free fly"? I mean, I know that's a dream. That's something, would be amazing if we could have them all doing that. But how did you get to that point?
So, easiest way is to start with a young bird. I'm not gonna lie there. Pulling a bird out of the rescue to do so with your so baby. I like to get him fledgling, even younger. I got Zorro when weeks old, and I just got him very used to being outside. That's probably one of the hardest parts is just get him used to being outside as much as possible. You can do this with harness training. You can use a batting cage, something safe that contains them. Then recall, recall, recall. You want to put your bird. You sit on the floor, put your bird up on the door, recall them. You put them on the floor, you high up, recall them. Back and forth as much as you can. And you want that bird to be locked on 100% every time your bird. And then once your bird's used to being outside, they have excellent recall. It's time to work, combine those two together.
Mhm.
Big fan of GPS. That really gives you a bit more comfort letting your bird go for the first time on its own.
So do you have telemetry on your birds or no?
Right now, no, I do not. If I go in an unfamiliar area, I'll put it on them. Zorro is horrible about destroying them. Kind of expensive to do that.
Yeah. We, yeah, I've talked to Chris Armstrong about that a number of times, and, I worked with raptors before, and it's a challenge to get that telemetry and get something they're comfortable with.
Yes, it is. It's the it's really the tail mount that they put on them. They always end up ripping them off, destroy a tail feather, and it's bad. And it's aggravating.
Mhm. Have you tried a backpack, telemetry?
I did that with my golden conure Nami. I put a little backpack. I made a setup like that, and she flew well with it. But the harness was a little irritating for her, so she flies better without it. It's also,
Mhm.
I think the setup weighs like 17 grams, and she's a 250-gram bird, and I think maybe the weight was affecting her flight ability a bit too.
Yeah. That has can be an issue. So I just wanna go back to diet for a second. If you were talking to people about what to look for in a pellet, because, I mean, pellet to some people is a dirty word, to other people, it's the way to go. I think birds should absolutely be familiar with what pellets are, that they're a food source, but what would you tell them to look for?
I would look for proven results behind the pellet. Like I use Harry Hagen. They breed their birds off their pellets, and then they show a good track record of, hey, look, we raise baby birds specifically on these pellets, and they are 100% healthy. To me, that screams, wonders of that's a healthy diet right there. Um, as far as what's in them, avoid something high in corn. I look for something maybe a little bit higher in calories, calorie density. Nothing, so I can feed them a smaller amount and they still get the same calorie intake that they should be getting. I also monitor how much I give them. You don't want to overgive your bird food. A lot of them, again, are sitting in cages. They're going to just board eat, and birds become obese doing that. So, I stick with about 3 tablespoons for a big bird like this.
Mhm. We had a question. Michelle asked, are they getting nuts when they come back each time they come back to you?
Nope, not every time.
Okay. Okay.
Actually, for the first year I free flew these guys, I didn't give them any treats at all. It was all praise motivation only.
That's awesome. I think that's an important, thing to note is a lot of people who are doing recall training think it has to be food at the end of every recall, and that's not
Yeah, yeah, you
necessarily
don't want
true.
that. The bird just becomes way too food motivated, and that's the only reason they come to you. When you overtreat too in a free flight situation like this, your birds become lazy and they don't want to fly as much. They just want to be on you all the time.
Yeah. And, I think it's with any training program at all, there is that having the reinforcement not be always food, not be always, predictable, I think is really important, in any kind of training. So obviously recall is the biggest, training, but what other kinds of training do you do, James?
Little tricks, wave, hi, good job. It's just fun stuff. Step up. I like, from the rescue standpoint, I like every bird to be reliable. Step up, go on, come out of the cage easily, go in the cage easily. I don't want anyone getting bit while a bird's coming in and out. We know, typically that's about the hardest part for a bird in a rescue situation is just coming in and out of the cage because they've spent so much time inside of it.
Yeah. Do you have any tips for people? I know that is a big, I get that a lot from people when they'll reach out to me as far as I'm having problems with this bird. It's a bird that I got from a rescue. He won't come out of the cage. What would you say to those folks?
Sit beside and just accordingly. Don't overtreat, of course, but just try to get them to come to you. Give them a treat for just coming to you. Any positive interaction, reward at the beginning, high rewards, and just kind of try to let them come out on their own and progress from there. If you have a hard time like with hands, if they're kind of like don't like hands going in the cage, try a stick and just
Mhm,
hey, step up on the stick, and then maybe they'll transition from a stick to a hand that way. Some birds do excellent doing that. If they don't like your left hand, try your right hand. Be a little brave too. A lot of people are like, "Oh, he's coming for me," and like they jerk back. All that teaches the bird is, "I need to move faster to get this guy." So
mhm.
you got to have, you just have to be a little brave. And if they reach for you with their beak, they're probably really just trying to grab you. They're not trying to bite you. And I think a lot of people make
Right.
that mistake.
I mean, and I think if you watch birds, for any length of time, you'll notice that they do use that beak is like a third hand, a third foot. It helps them move along. And yes, I mean, I'm not gonna lie and say that sometimes that beak can be a weapon, but it's generally in response to something we've done in my experiences. Um, as far as the bird that has had, a horrible situation in the past. Um, how do you suggest that people build relationships? Because to me, that's one of the most important things. You've got to have that relationship and that trust before you do any significant training. So, what would you suggest to people?
Sharing food is bonding. Yeah, I mean, that goes with every species. You share food with any human, you sit down at the table and have a tasty meal, you're just gonna enjoy each other's company more. Do the same thing with a
Mhm.
bird. They will eventually come around like, "Oh, man, every time I'm around, this guy has the best food." So,
Yeah.
food.
Well, I think it's great. And the bird that won't come out, the bird that wants nothing to do with you. If you can't get him to that point where he's kinda hanging out with you for food, what do you do then?
If possible, I ditch the cage.
Okay.
Put them on a stand, just get rid of the cage altogether,
Mhm.
and see if they can live without that cage and just being, usually a bird's out of the cage, are like, whoa, what just happened? I like that thing. So if it's out of sight, out of mind, birds typically do a little better with that.
Interesting. That's kinda cool. I really never thought about it in those terms. That's really good. Um, so if somebody comes to you and says, "I have this bird that is a huge behavior has huge behavior problems," um, what are you gonna say? Are you gonna suggest to them that they work on it? Or if you realize they're at that point where, no, they're probably not going to work on it, um, what happens with that bird when it arrives at Straw Hat Parrot?
So I have an intake process. I built a quarantine room, so every bird goes through quarantine process. They go in there until we go to the vet. We get disease testing done. Everything comes back negative, and then they can get moved into general population. I do try to keep old world and new world birds separate, just because cockatoo dust is not great for macaws.
Yeah, yeah,
From there, once they've been here for a little while, they've kind of used to my presence. I start reaching in the cage, start asking for a step up, and seeing what kind of behavior I get. If a bird is argumentative, then we're just going to kind of sit there and play nice for a little while and see if we can get some better responses.
okay. How do you determine reinforcers? So these are they don't come with an instruction manual, obviously. So how do you determine what works from bird to bird?
Trial by error.
Yeah,
So every
yeah,
bird's an individual, so one thing might work for one bird and not work for the next.
Okay. Do you have, so what do you have in your toolbox as far as for you? Like, okay, I'm gonna try this. What do you keep in your toolbox for reinforcers?
I mean, again, food. Food's just a big one for me. Birds love, they live for food and sex, to be honest. So
Sure.
I can't provide the second one, but I can definitely provide the first one.
Okay, that's
So
fair.
if
That's
I
definitely
can get,
fair.
yeah, see, right now they're also very bonded. So I'm also big on
Yeah.
birds being pairs together. Birds thrive with other birds.
So how do you manage that? That led right into a question. How do you manage that as far as who you're gonna house together? I know, old world, new world, but how do you make that decision?
Typically in the rescue, I keep them separate unless they're just like, hey, like, they're sitting side by side on or on opposing ends of cages and they're just like next to each other all the time. I'm going to probably introduce them and see if they like each other.
Mhm.
Like I have a pair of male double yellow-headed Amazons in there. Neither one of them are particularly handable. Double yellows are pretty aggressive birds most of the time, and they just were constantly like sitting side by side inside of each other on their own cages. So I was like, let's just see how you guys interact outside of a cage. And they interacted quite pleasantly. They really liked each other. So I just let them choose which cage they wanted to be in. And they both went in one cage. And I was like, all right, that works. And they're constantly side by side and they constantly love each other. And I can't touch them.
Well, so that's another really good point. I've had people say to me, "I've got this bird and I think I need to rehome him because I can't touch him." And my experience is there are birds like that, and that's okay if you can still kind of build a relationship without the physical.
So that's one thing I would probably take a page from, or the reptile community is these pet birds don't have to be pet me pet birds. They can be,
Mhm.
I just observe these birds and give them the best life I can. They don't have to be your companion. They can be each other's companions.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's so important because I really think that, you know, they're not some of them will solicit that contact. The head scratches. I mean, there are spectacled owls that will work for head scratches. But honestly, I think some of them, it's just sharing space, and I think that's okay. And people beat themselves up about it. They're like, "Oh, well, I can't pet him. I can't do this." That's all right.
Yeah, you don't have to.
Yeah, yeah. It's very true.
Yeah, yeah. I think a
And
lot of people relate to cats and dogs. You can pet just about any cat and dog. They're a domesticated animal. These
Mhm,
guys, they're wild animals. They're like maybe twice removed from the wild. So you're dealing with the same thing that lives in the Amazon.
yeah. And there's nothing mammalian about them. I mean, that's the thing. We Last week's Flock Talk was about how they're dinosaurs, and they truly are
Yeah.
dinosaurs. But I think, that's the big issue is people are looking to have that snuggly pet, and it doesn't always work that way. Um, I want to say hi to Taylor Haynes, who is enjoying himself at Jazz Festival with Carrie Ellen, and he took time out to say hi. So he says, "Hi,
Hey
James."
Taylor. I know
Uh,
Taylor.
but yeah. So I mean, Janice says she doesn't want a Klingon bird, and that's my preference is a bird that can entertain itself, that can, keep itself amused, and if it wants to share space, that's great. I don't know. That's to me what a bird is.
Yeah, I agree.
So, do you, when birds come into to Straw Hat, what's the biggest behavior issue that you are encountering?
Um, Probably just handability in general, not wanting to step up.
Mhm. Yeah. And
Um,
so, I mean, that's kind of a lesson for all of us that with the birds at home, you wanna kinda just that's a really important skill for them to have because they will carry it over. It's if there's a strong reinforcement history, they're gonna figure that out. that that's something that they get reinforced for.
Agreed. Yes. Yeah, you
Yeah.
reinforce a good step up in handability, you'll it just gets a lot easier from there. Once a bird steps up,
Yeah.
I feel like you get a solid step up, everything becomes monumentally easier after that.
Absolutely. And I think, that's it's part of the trust, it's part of the relationship. And if you can build that reinforcement history, they're gonna see, okay, this works. Frank is from New York, and Frank says, "Good Lord, I'm looking at the size of his yard. According to him, you can build a whole town there. Go. You're gonna have straw hat parrot town." It's
Well,
just it's just those of us in the Northeast don't get to see that much space all the time. In Maine, we do,
our
but Frank
regulation
doesn't.
out here is one home for every 5 acres.
There you go. I like that. That's good. Um, so in your experience, so how long have you had straw hat parrots?
I've been incorporated for going on 3 years.
Okay. Um, so in all the time you've been working with birds, do you have one that you would say is your biggest success?
Hmm. I do have one that's actually within the last year. He was a green wing Oscar. He came in and you couldn't touch him. Like, just he had a he shredded his chest. All his feathers were just they weren't plucked, but they were just he looked horrible. He was on a heavy seed diet. He had that nasty green poop. So diet was of course my first concern is fixing that. He took straight to the diet. That was no problem at all. Second was handability. That one took some time. And then one just like clicked for him. And he was goofy dancing with me. He was doing like this little, I call it cranking it. And I was like, whoa, like, what is this personality? And then, like, within a week, he was just a lovey, handable macaw. And the woman who adopted him, she got him. He was friendly with her almost right off the bat, brought him home. And for about a week, she had hard time handling him. And I was like, give it some time. He's just in a new place. Like he's a sweet bird. He'll come around. And she just, she was persistent, did what I said, sat with him, gave some treats. Within a week, he came around. This bird's like, she sent me pictures of him like sticking his head inside of her shirt, just a cuddle monster. And it's like, that's not the same bird that came in.
Mhm. And I think that's something, you bring up a really good point when you say, "Give it some time." And, you know, the screaming bird, the bird that's, not the cuddle monster, what do you how do you convince people to they can get through that?
Uh, some people, I mean, honestly, some people just can't. Like, sorry, like some people just go through it. Not everyone is meant to be a bird owner. And I hate to say like a condescending way, but not everyone's just built for it. And you have to recognize your ability. And if this is just beyond you, just go ahead and admit this is beyond me and I don't know what I'm doing and I can't handle it. That's perfectly acceptable answer.
Mhm. I agree. Absolutely it's it does justice to the bird because it
It
gets,
does.
people who do the, "No, I'm gonna stick it out." That's the same that's the parent that made you eat everything on your plate before you had dessert, in my opinion. It's
I
I'm
agree.
gonna stick with it's gonna have to be this way. And birds don't function like that.
No, I agree. They it just if you can't handle it. And I hate how people just say, "Oh, it's it's unethical to rehome your bird. You shouldn't do that. It's bad for them." No, I think personally, keeping a bird in a stressful situation, nobody's happy, is worse for them. So,
Absolutely,
in
and
instances, it's perfectly okay to rehome them.
it definitely is, and I think, we've kinda got that stigma that happens that, "Oh, I couldn't handle it. I was a failure." Well, it may just be that it wasn't the right match.
I agree with
Um
that too. Not every bird is the right match for everyone. I've had birds who they're a challenge for me, but do great with somebody who's barely been into birds. So, I
Mhm.
mean, sometimes birds just click better with other people, and that's just the scenario.
And I've had people say, "Oh, well, the bird chose me." And before I really got into it, I was like, "Oh, that's garbage." But I think it's true that, there it's not always instantaneous, but there is that kind of you've gotta accept, maybe this isn't the right match, maybe this doesn't work, and that doesn't mean that your house should be, a revolving door for birds, but you gotta be realistic.
Absolutely. I've
So
had
are your
bird
guys
people,
just
and uh, they've given up on birds. Hey, I bought this bird, babe, I've had him for 5 years, and he doesn't mess with my flock at all. Like, a conscious effort to home him to the best home I can find. That's okay.
Yeah, yeah,
And
definitely.
naturally, if you look at it from a wild point, the bird leave its family and go on to find its own mate and start moving on to its own life. So realistically, a bird getting rehomed in that amount of time would probably be feeling rather natural for them to move on.
Mhm. No, I agree. And so as far as, um, things to kinda look for, from your point of view, if someone comes to you, w what is that break point? What is that, point where you say, "Yeah, I'll work with you," or, "Yeah, it's time to rehome this bird."
It's usually, I feel out their emotions on it. If they're like, I've tried this and this, I've given it 3 months and had any success, then we can consider rehoming. But if I have someone who reaches out to me and they're like, I've been trying everything and it's been like 3 days, I'm like, you haven't tried everything. It's been 3 days.
Well, and
So it's a
I think that's important because we're such an instant gratification society now that people think,
yeah.
and they get sold that bill of goods that they can fix this bird in 3 days or they can fix this bird in a day, and that's not the reality of it. How long did
No,
it
this
take you to get
takes months.
how long did it take you to get these guys to the point that they're at now, where you can walk with them and they
Uh,
fly and come back and
well, I've been free flying Zorro since he was about 4.5 months old. I started him outside at like 6 weeks old. I have videos of him trying to fly down a hill, just not even enough feathers to fly. And so he progressed very quickly, but he had Luffy to feed off of too. I started free flying her when she was a year old. I had about 8 months of training into her
Mhm,
before just saying, all right, it's time.
okay. So do you fly them in pairs usually? Do you fly more than one at a time?
I always fly these two together.
Okay, okay.
They have a
Um,
Hans macaw named Icarus that flies with them too. He's inside with his girlfriend at the moment, though.
um, so Dina asked, she'd like to hear how Havoc is doing.
Havoc's doing great. He's sharing a little 10 by 10 aviary with my greater Vaza, Preston, my two and Ava, the orange one. I'm walking over there right now.
Okay.
Yeah, he's not much of a man's bird. He likes women, but a lot better with my girlfriend. There he is.
Excuse the metal buildings
Hi,
while we get our signal back.
Oh, okay. So, more challenges. We've got metal buildings.
oh, am I break?
You were breaking up on your way over.
Oh, I'll stay away from there.
Um, so James, how many birds do you have at Straw Hat?
I don't have an exact number on hand, but about 40.
Okay, okay. And is that average for you? I mean, is that usually where you're at?
Actually, that's a little low. I've had more adoptions than intakes this year. So, well,
Nice.
started the year with probably about 55, and I've had a lot of adoptions. A lot of my big macaques just ended up getting adopted like February and March. Um, haven't had a whole lot of intakes in March or April.
Nice. That's good.
Yeah, yeah,
Um,
it gives me a little bit of breathing room. There's definitely room in the rescue. So if I have an emergency situation come up where someone has to rehome a bird or death in the family kind of situation, I have immediate room. So that is good.
okay. So, all right. You mentioned, it's kind of your dream would be for all birds to have free flight. Um, do the birds that you adopt out, do you do recall training and free flight with them, or is that just your personal birds?
I only do free flight with my personal birds. It's a lot of work to get there, and the amount of bonding that really goes into it too is a lot. So to rehome a free flighted bird, just they wouldn't really be a free flighted bird for somebody else.
Right.
Like
Right.
if somebody else tried
Okay.
to free fly Luffy and Zoro, forget about it. They would be wild birds to them.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think that's important that it's not just something, we talked about how it's a lifestyle. It's not really something that you can hand off to someone else.
Yeah, absolutely. It would require if you wanted to hand this off to somebody else, it would require probably months of transition and work to try to get your bird to be okay with them.
Okay. So I said we'd save it till the end. Let's talk about your flight.
Okay. Yeah, there it is.
This is just so cool.
Yeah, yeah, it's a lot of fun. It's initially it was pretty anxiety inducing, but it is a whole lot of fun.
So did you build that or is that something that can
So
purchase?
this is something you could buy. That was my old paramotor. I have a newer one now that's all electric, so it doesn't run on gas anymore. And that's ultimately what I end up flying around the birds, so there's no fumes and throttle. It's just off.
So you do it with the birds?
I haven't yet, but the end goal.
Nice. There's a group in Nepal that does para-hawking with hawks.
Okay, I've seen birds
Um,
of like vultures flying with people, just wild vultures, of course, and
yep.
it is interesting to see it just right there.
So are you gonna have to desensitize them to all the equipment?
Yeah, side of the equipment, like the wing that's above me, it's 24 meters. So
Okay.
then so just a big colorful object. I'm probably gonna freak out about it at first. But once I get, it'll probably be. I'll just have it on the ground and fly my birds around it and just get them used to that. And hopefully, once up in the air, and they're just like, oh well, he's up there, so it must be okay.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. Um, so any final words from Straw Hat until we see you in July?
Final words. Put me on the spot. Uh,
Uh-oh, I didn't put that in the notes.
just hey, enjoy your birds. Do the best you can. Don't feel as a baby. Don't feel bad if you rescue a bird. Don't let anybody pressure you into enjoying your bird or not enjoying your bird. Do what you feel is right. And ultimately, if you're giving your bird a good home, you're doing it right.
Absolutely. I love it. I mean, it's so true, and people, it's about the relationship you have with that animal, that bird. It's not about where it came from, how you got it. Um, you know, that is living their best life right there. Um, but thank you so much, James, and, I will see you in July. Anybody that wants to support Straw Hat, you could do that through the Leather Elves. James, how else can people support what you're doing?
If you'd like to make a donation, I have, all the regular options: PayPal, Zelle, Venmo, all Straw Hat Parrots. I have a link. Go to strawhatparrots.com. That's me. The
Mhm.
donation link is right in there. Facebook, you can donate through there. Um, Follow me. I'm a monetized page on Facebook, so simply interacting with me on Facebook pays me. So like,
Nice.
share, engage however you can. I'll get paid from Facebook just from doing that.
All right. Well, thank you again, and I will see you in July. Thanks everybody for watching tonight. It's so great to see what James is doing at Straw Hat. We've got the Rockstar Rescue Tour still coming up. Um, the list of organizations that we're going to be stopping at are here. We also have added Companion Parrots Rehomed in North Carolina. So they are also on the list. I want to thank everybody that has supported us thus far. It's going to be an amazing trip. We've got some expenses coming up, like the van and hotels and things like that. If you wanted to donate to that, that would be wonderful. Carrie Ellen and I could use the assistance. The Rockstar promo is out there. You can just go to the leatherelves.equid.com and click on Be a Rockstar. I also want to thank the companies that have been supporting us. We've got sponsorships from Aronico, A&E Cage Company, Bonka Kings, Bonka Toys, Kings Cages, um, blah, blah, biodiversity bird blends, I think, and Jason's gonna kill me for that. Um, let's see. And Kemp Enterprises, they do wood parts. So there's a lot going on. We've got some wonderful, wonderful sponsors. And they've donated product that will also be going to the rescues and sanctuaries that are involved. So keep supporting us. We're also going to work on a t-shirt in case you want to show your rock star pride. We will be coming up with that in probably the next few days. So keep a lookout for that. And next week, we are going to have your favorite trivia couple, Mark and Joanna Roth from Bird Fever in Indianapolis. We're going to do a trivia with some cool prizes, and we'll just have some fun as usual. So everyone take care, and I will see you next week. Have a great week. Bye-bye.